Xi Jinping signed 7 words on a piece of paper that ended 70 years of American global dominance. The words were these: the East is rising, the West is declining. He signed them in Beijing, in a closed-door meeting with 23 heads of state from the global South, in a room that contained 0 American officials, 0 European officials, and 0 representatives from any country that had ever called itself part of the Western Alliance. And within 48 hours, every finance ministry on earth understood that something irreversible had just happened. Because Xi Jinping was not making a prediction. He was announcing a transition that had already occurred. He was describing the new financial architecture that 54 countries had just signed on to. He was describing the new trade settlement system that had just gone live across 3 continents. He was describing the world that exists right now, today, while America is still pretending the old world is intact. And here is the line that I want you to remember for the next 15 minutes, because everything in this video flows from it. America still owns the building. China just bought the land underneath it. Let me take you back 90 days, because what happened in those 90 days is the story nobody is telling you. For 3 months, Beijing said almost nothing publicly about America. No major speeches, no combative press conferences, no retaliation when Washington imposed the new semiconductor restrictions in February. No response when the Treasury Department added another 41 Chinese companies to the sanctions list in March. American analysts, American newspapers, American think tanks all wrote the same story. China is weakening. China is hesitating. China is running out of moves. They were wrong. They were catastrophically wrong, because China was not silent. China was building, quietly, methodically, in every region of the world where America had stopped paying attention. In those 90 days, China signed currency swap agreements with 17 new countries. China completed the final integration of the cross-border interbank payment system, the alternative to SWIFT, with 33 central banks across Africa, the Middle East, Latin America, and Southeast Asia. China finalized rare earth processing agreements that now cover 92% of global refining capacity. China quietly became the largest trading partner of 148 countries on Earth. The United States is the largest trading partner of just 57. Read that again. 148 to 57. That is not a competition. That is a result. And the result was achieved while America was distracted by election cycles, by cable news outrage, by the daily feeder of who said what about whom. China was not silent. China was finishing the job. Now here is where the story gets dangerous for everyone watching, including you, including me, including every person who holds savings in dollars or owns assets priced in the Western financial system. Because what Xi Jinping announced in that Beijing meeting was not one thing. It was 4 things happening at the same time. And each one of them, individually, would be a major historical event. All 4 of them, simultaneously, is the end of an era. Pillar 1 is the dollar. 47% of global trade is now being settled in currencies other than the US dollar. 5 years ago, that number was 11%. The dollar is not collapsing tomorrow, but the dollar's monopoly, the thing that has given America the power to sanction any country, freeze any account, and dictate the terms of global finance, that monopoly is already gone. It ended while nobody was watching. Pillar 2 is energy. Saudi Arabia, the country that built the petrodollar with Henry Kissinger in 1974, is now selling oil to China in yuan. The United Arab Emirates is settling LNG contracts in yuan. Russia sells everything in yuan. Iran sells everything in yuan. Together, those 4 countries control more than 38% of global energy exports. The petrodollar that gave the US dollar its global anchor for 50 years is structurally finished. Pillar 3 is technology. China now produces more electric vehicles than the rest of the world combined. China leads in solar panel manufacturing by a margin of 80%. China dominates lithium battery production with 78% of global capacity. And in artificial intelligence, the gap that everyone said was 5 years has closed to less than 9 months. Pillar 4 is the alliance. BRICS now has 21 full and partner member countries, representing 46% of the global population and 41% of global GDP. The G7 represents 10% of population and 29% of GDP, and the gap is widening every quarter. 4 pillars, all shifting at the same time, all in the same direction. That is not a coincidence. That is a coordinated transition that took 30 years to engineer and 90 days to publicly announce. Now let me tell you about the moment that should have been on every front page in the world, but was not on any of them. 3 weeks ago, in a city called Tianjin, the central bank governors of 54 countries met for what was officially called a routine financial cooperation summit. The Western press did not cover it. The American business networks ignored it. CNN ran a segment about a celebrity divorce instead. But inside that room, those 54 central bank governors signed a framework agreement that does something no agreement has ever done before in modern financial history. It creates a unified clearing system that allows any of those 54 countries to trade with any other of those 54 countries without ever touching the US dollar, without ever using the SWIFT network, and without ever requiring American regulatory approval. The agreement is called the Multilateral Settlement Framework. The countries inside it represent 53% of the world's population and 44% of global trade volume. And the system goes fully operational on August 1st of this year. Let me say that one more time so it lands. On August 1st, more than half the world's population will have access to a financial system that does not need America, that cannot be sanctioned by America, that cannot be frozen by America, that cannot be monitored by America. The dollar will still exist on August 2nd. American banks will still process trillions in transactions on August 2nd. But the leverage, the actual political power that the dollar gave Washington, will be functionally cut in half. And nobody in the American political class is talking about it, because nobody knows how to talk about it without admitting that something irreversible has already happened. This is the burial. This is what Xi Jinping was announcing with those 7 words. The East is rising, the West is declining. He was not predicting, he was confirming. Now you might be thinking, okay, but America is still the strongest military on earth. America still has the most powerful technology companies on earth. America still has the largest economy on earth measured in nominal terms. Why can't America just reverse this? This is the most important question in this entire video, and I want you to listen carefully to the answer, because the answer explains everything about the next 10 years of your life, your investments, your career, and your country's place in the world. America cannot reverse this for one specific reason. The tools that America used to maintain its dominance are the same tools that motivated the rest of the world to build alternatives. Every time America imposed sanctions on a country, that country had a powerful incentive to build a financial system that could not be sanctioned. Every time America froze a country's reserves, every other country with reserves looked at their own dollar holdings and asked the obvious question: what if we are next? Every time America used the dollar as a weapon, the dollar became less useful to everyone who was not America. And here's the part that the American political class refuses to acknowledge. The freezing of Russian reserves in February 2022 was the single most consequential financial decision of the 21st century. Not because of what it did to Russia. Russia adapted. Russia is selling more oil now than before the sanctions. The decision was consequential because of what every other central bank governor on earth concluded after watching it happen. Every central bank governor in the global south, in the Middle East, in Southeast Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, looked at what happened to Russia's $300 billion and asked the same question at the same moment. If America can do this to a permanent member of the UN Security Council with thousands of nuclear weapons, what can America do to me? The answer they all reached, independently, simultaneously, was the same. We need an exit. We need it now. We need it built before we ever need to use it. 3 years later, the exit is built. The exit goes operational on August 1st, and America cannot stop it because the people building it are no longer asking America for permission. Hit subscribe right now, because what I'm about to tell you in the next 4 minutes is the part of this story that determines whether your savings, your job, and your country's economy survive the next decade in good shape or in serious trouble. This channel exists to give you the analysis that mainstream media will not give you. And the only way it survives is if you subscribe and turn on notifications. Do it now, then come back. I'll wait. Okay. Now let me give you the 3 scenarios for what August 1st actually produces. Because every serious analyst, every central bank, every sovereign wealth fund is modeling these 3 scenarios right now. And you should be too. Scenario 1 is the soft transition. In this scenario, the Multilateral Settlement Framework goes live, but adoption is gradual. Countries use it for some trades, keep using the dollar for others. The dollar's share of global reserves declines slowly over 5 to 7 years, from 58% to maybe 40%. America has time to adjust. Markets have time to reprice. The transition is painful, but manageable. This is the scenario that Wall Street is publicly hoping for. Scenario 2 is the rapid pivot. In this scenario, August 1st triggers a much faster shift. Countries that were waiting to see if the system worked move quickly once they see it functioning. Within 12 months, dollar usage drops to 40% of global trade. Within 24 months, the dollar's share of global reserves falls to 42%. American interest rates have to rise sharply to attract continued foreign investment. American consumers feel the impact in higher prices on everything imported. This is the scenario that most independent economists are quietly modeling. Scenario 3 is the one I want you to think about most carefully. In this scenario, August 1st becomes a flashpoint. A single major country, possibly Saudi Arabia, possibly India, possibly Brazil, makes a public announcement that they are moving the majority of their trade settlement out of dollars within 90 days. That announcement triggers a cascade. Other countries, fearing they will be the last ones holding dollar exposure when the music stops, accelerate their own transitions. Within 6 months, the dollar is no longer the dominant currency for global trade. American debt, currently at $36 trillion and rising, becomes harder to finance. The interest payments on that debt, already exceeding the entire defense budget, become a fiscal crisis. And the United States enters a decade that historians will compare to Britain after 1956. Which scenario is most likely? Honestly, I think it is somewhere between 2 and 3. The transition is happening faster than the soft scenario assumes, but a single triggering announcement is still a possibility, not a certainty. What I am certain of is this. Scenario 1, the slow, comfortable transition that Wall Street is hoping for, is the least likely of the 3. Now let me bring this down from the global level to the personal level, because this is where most analysis fails you. If you live in America, this means the era of cheap imports, cheap credit, and the assumption that the dollar will always be strong is ending. Not tomorrow, not next month, but within the next 3 to 7 years, the cost of everything you buy that was made outside America is going to rise meaningfully. The interest rate on your mortgage, your car loan, your credit card is going to rise. The purchasing power of your salary is going to decline relative to the rest of the world. This is not a prediction based on fear. This is the mathematical consequence of the dollar losing its monopoly. If you live outside America, in any of the 148 countries where China is now the largest trading partner, this transition is going to feel different. It is going to feel like opportunities are opening. Trade in your local currency. Investment from sources that do not require American approval. Infrastructure projects that move forward without 10 years of World Bank conditions. Some of those opportunities will be real. Some of them will come with new dependencies that look different from the old ones, but are not necessarily better. If you hold investments, the next 5 years require active rethinking. Assets that were safe for 40 years because they were dollar-denominated are no longer automatically safe. Assets that were considered exotic because they were tied to emerging markets, commodities, and non-dollar systems are no longer automatically exotic. The categories are being redrawn. The people who understand that early will protect what they have built. The people who assume the next 30 years will look like the last 30 years will be the ones writing the cautionary articles in 2030. This is not financial advice. I am not your financial advisor, but I am telling you what every serious sovereign wealth fund and every serious central bank is doing right now. They are diversifying. They are rebalancing. They are quietly preparing for the world that begins on August 1st. Here is what I believe, and I will say it directly because that is the only kind of analysis worth your time. The 70-year era of American global financial dominance is ending. It is ending not because America was defeated militarily. It is ending not because China invaded anywhere or fired any missiles. It is ending because America used its financial dominance so aggressively for so long against so many countries that the rest of the world finally finished building the alternative. Xi Jinping did not bury American power. American policy buried American power. China simply held the shovel and waited. And the 7 words, the East is rising, the West is declining, were not a threat. They were a status update. They were a confirmation that the transition the world has been quietly executing for 30 years has reached a point of public announcement. The burial happened quietly. The funeral is on August 1st. And the new world that exists on August 2nd will be a world where no single country has the power that America had between 1945 and 2025. Whether that world is better or worse depends on choices that have not yet been made. Choices about whether the new system creates more equality or just transfers dominance from one capital to another. Choices about whether your country adapts strategically or arrives at the new reality unprepared. Choices about whether you, personally, position yourself for what is coming or assume it will not affect you. And let me tell you something that history teaches us very clearly. Because this moment we are living through is not the first time the world has watched a dominant power lose its grip on the global financial system. In 1914, the British pound controlled 60% of global trade. By 1945, it controlled less than 10%. The transition took 30 years, but the people who recognized it in 1920 built fortunes. The people who recognized it in 1940 saved what they had. The people who refused to recognize it until 1950 lost almost everything they had built across 2 generations. The same pattern repeated with the Dutch guilder before the pound, with the Spanish real before the guilder, with Venetian gold before the real. Every single time, the transition followed the same script. First, the dominant power overextends militarily and financially. Second, the rest of the world quietly builds alternatives. Third, a single triggering event makes the transition visible to everyone at once. Fourth, the people who were paying attention adjust early, and the people who were not paying attention pay the price for the next 30 years. We are right now, today, at step 3. The Tianjin meeting was the trigger. August 1st is the visible moment, and the only question that matters for you is whether you are going to be in the group that adjusts early or the group that pays the price. It will affect you. It is already affecting you. The only question is whether you understand it before it becomes obvious to everyone, or whether you find out the way most people find out, by watching it on the news after the decision has already been made. So here is my question for you, and I want you to answer it honestly in the comments below. When the dollar's monopoly ends on August 1st, do you believe your country is ready for what comes next? Or is your country still acting like the old world is going to last forever? Drop your answer in the comments. Tell me what country you are watching from. Tell me what you are seeing on the ground that the headlines are not reporting. Because the comments on this channel are read by people in finance ministries, by people in central banks, by people whose decisions actually shape what happens next. Your voice matters here in a way it does not matter on most platforms. And before you leave, do this one thing. Subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell. Because the next 2 weeks before August 1st are going to produce more consequential financial news than the previous 2 years combined. And you do not want to find out about it from a network that ran a celebrity divorce segment instead of covering the Tianjin meeting. You want to find out about it here, first, with the analysis that connects the dots that nobody else is willing to connect. This is Professor Zhang. Stay sharp, stay informed, and never mistake a quiet transition for a transition that is not happening.